Boston Public Schools are beginning the year with a new superintendent, Dr. Brenda Cassellius. She arrived in Boston over the summer after serving as a commissioner of education in Minnesota, and she's starting her new assignment by trying to connect with the school system and the community. Part of that process is that we're having her in our studio along with the chair of the Boston School Committee, Michael Loconto. Thank you both for being with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Right. First, I want to start with the superintendent. You're getting out there. You're going to see all these schools in such a short time, all these meetings. What stands out in what you've seen so far?
Oh, I've just first had such a warm welcome throughout the summer from Bostonians, and I just love living here and love this great city. So excited about being able to get out to the schools now, see the actual facility. We have the big build BPS ahead of us around the mayor's commitment to improve the facilities. We also have universal pre-kindergarten from the mayor, and so we're hoping to be able to see where we can provide services for children within our schools. And so the objective of getting out into all of those schools is to get a real good sense of the community, which the children, what kind of resources are there, what kind of supports are they getting, and what kind of education are they getting.
Michael, how important is that in a superintendent? I mean, this is not what every single superintendent in Boston does, getting out there, touching base like this. How does it really matter?
Well, I think it's so important at the point that we're in with our district and our city at large. We've got a district that has a lot of involved families, very invested families that want to see what's best for all students across our district. And so there's a lot of charged opinions there, but there's also a lot of very important ideas and opinions that we want to hear about. And so having someone like Dr. Cassellius, as I mentioned earlier, she came as advertised. She's been ready from the get-go to get out there and talk to people all across our city and bring them in and really restart the conversation that we so desperately need around things like education funding, facilities, our budget, the way that we organize our schools, and the way that kids move through our system from K to 12. And so we're so happy to be partnering with her.
Dr. Cassellius, you're also trying to engage some students who've been struggling with engagement. What did you learn from making the rounds in Boston?
Oh, well, every time you knock on a door, it's an opportunity to make an impact with students and with families and to provide them with information on how to be engaged in schools and how to be successful in schools. And so this is part of a larger effort that started really before I even came around attendance, and we're just expanding it to be able to go out into the community, speak to parents, give them the information, provide students with the information who maybe have disengaged prior into how they can re-engage into their education and really look at toward their career and college for them.
Michael, I know the school committee was onto this beforehand too, because there was a study done about students in high school level who were falling off track. A lot of dissatisfaction with the 4-year graduation rate. So what do you think needs to be done about that?
Well, I think we need to work on or concentrate on implementing a number of the findings in that report, and a lot of that just comes with centers on the types of services that we're providing for kids in our high schools. The fact that we don't have guidance counselors that are sufficient to serve all of our students, the fact that we're not preparing our students before they get to high school to succeed in certain areas. Algebra in 8th grade is one of those things that we focus on. And so, it's none of these issues that we deal with are ever simple. They're all complex and they're interrelated. And so having someone that has this experience to both bring in the kids that we've lost to date and get them back on track to graduate and move on to college and career, but also provide the opportunities for the students that are in the system that may have fallen behind to catch back up and graduate on time is so important for us.
Dr. Cassellius, I think one thing you've learned from your experience with special needs students and with ELL students as well is that I guess there are different learning curves with different lengths of time too.
Yeah, we're going to be taking a really deep look at inclusion. We have an inclusionary task force we've been working with the Boston Teachers Union on to be able to look at our services for students with disabilities, as well as, Boston Public Schools has so many different languages spoken in our school system. So making sure that students have the opportunity for dual language and for seeing that language and multiple languages as an asset. to them that they bring to their education. So being able to program around those two specifically will be a huge piece of the work moving forward.
This is BNN News. We're talking with Boston School Superintendent Dr. Brenda Cassellius and the chair of the Boston School Committee, Michael Loconto. Michael, the school committee had already been in this process with the superintendent previously about building new schools, reconfiguring schools. What happens next with that?
So I think we're in that process now. One of the things that Interim Superintendent Peril left us with was a charge to convert a number of schools that are currently K-5 to K-6. And the intent behind that is a number of our higher performing high schools begin in grade 7. And so providing one transition over a 14-year period in a student's career within the Boston Public Schools is of prime importance to us for a number of reasons. And so providing more opportunities for students to have that single transition over those 14 years has been a goal of the committee. And we've been working on this, quite frankly, since the new mayoral administration began in 2014. And so we're very pleased to be moving forward. We're moving forward with 16 new schools next year, and we'll have a number of new schools coming online shortly thereafter.
Dr. Cassellius, I know you've had some ideas about the value of middle schools, big versus small. How does that fit with Boston?
Well, it fits pretty well. So when I first came in, I was interviewed. They asked me would I stick with the configuration and would that be my recommendation. And since the work had already been done, I said it really didn't matter too much about the grade configuration, but that there was the value in these pathways. And so that families could have certainty where they would be sending their children, as well as then how do you program inside the actual school for middle schoolers. And so you can't give them a high school education quite yet, and you don't want to treat them like little kids. So you want to be really specific with how you work with early adolescents and adolescent children.
I also turn, Michael Loconto, to the problem of transportation. This has become almost an annual struggle this year. Some really rough stories coming out there. Have things been getting straightened out since the opening?
It's the same as every year. You know, we have a lot of rough patches when we first begin, and you know, some of that is owed to the fact that we bring in students very late in the process. We've got a 57,000 student population, or close to that, and about 3,000 of those students enroll in late July and into August and early September. And so getting those students routed and integrated into the rest of the system can be a challenge for us every year. But even with students that are returning every year, we have changing demographics across the city, and all of that contributes to a very complex system that needs to be mapped on an annual basis. And that's really not an excuse, but that's frankly a symptom of the complexity that's grown over the years because of the busing and assignment system that we have in our school system.
Dr. Cassellius, I think you used some strong language about this. You were very upset.
Well, it's unacceptable, right? I mean, as a parent myself, it would be worrisome to have my child getting to school late or maybe standing there on the street corner by themselves. And so we plan on really looking at our contracting services with our partners, TransDev, and making sure that that they're being good partners in that, as well as making sure that our own end, where we're communicating with families, is better. I wish we would have had a little bit better communications with our families, and so with the different languages and that sort of barrier, we have to figure out new ways in order to better communicate with our families.
Probably, Michael Loconto, I imagine both of you read the Boston Globe story that came out recently about the students at Brighton High School.
Indeed.
A lot of problems there with kids, I think, feeling motivated to push for something beyond high school. What's the missing piece there, you think?
I haven't had a fully formed thought on that article, which is pretty in-depth, and you know, it reminds me a little bit of Jim Ryan was the dean at the Harvard Ed School a few years ago. He's moved back to Virginia now as the president of University of Virginia. He wrote a book about the Richmond public schools called 5 Miles, A World Apart, something a world away. And it talked about the same dichotomy. It was city schools versus county schools, and the county was much better off in terms of economics. And you see that push and pull between Brighton High School as an example, or an exemplar of a number of the schools that we have within Boston, and the example that you have of a much better funded, higher socioeconomic population in a place like Newton South. And so I think that's pretty representative of the struggle that we're going through right now with state education funding reform in Beacon Hill, and thinking about how we can accurately fund for different student attributes, student needs, high socioeconomic needs, et cetera, in our urban areas, so that we put those students on a level playing field with the students that we find in these other communities.
Superintendent, any thoughts that you have about how to help those students?
Well, see, this is the problem, and they spelled it out beautifully, is that it shouldn't matter which public school you go to. It should be an excellent and equitable opportunity for every single student. And so that's what we'll be doing here in the Boston Public Schools, defining what is high quality and what is it that we can do in every single neighborhood so that students have multiple choices, whether it's having the performing arts, the reading about the children having the athletic opportunities, the opportunities for performing arts, the opportunity to have academic rigor in their course taking and the counseling and support systems that they need. And then also, as Chair Loconto was talking about, there's these outside factors that students have within the urban core that they have if they've had a lack of opportunity earlier in their education career. And so we want to make sure that we have an all hands on deck approach to make sure that students have those support systems in place. And sometimes that's beyond what we can do within the school, and so we ask for our nonprofit community partners, our community-based organizations, to support students and support the whole community and family. So that, if it's a homeless issue, or if it's a food security issue, or a student finds himself pregnant, or something like that, we can then support that student to get them the education that they need and that they deserve.
Thank you both very much, Dr. Brenda Cassellius and Michael Loconto.
Thank you.